Welcome back to the Weekend Warrior Show Recap Podcast. I'm Tyler from the Unemployed Architects. This week, I have a lot of shows to talk about, so I don't know if I'm really going to go through and list them right away, but we'll just start with PK's in Pontiac. That would have been January 11th. Played there solo. So that was, I just played acoustic. I used my in-ears. Wasn't a super busy night necessarily, but and it was the only show I had that weekend, which is kind of unusual, but it's good to have that once in a while, Friday night off. I don't remember even what we did, but probably wasn't much. Or no, we went to see Cadillac that Friday at Dr. McKay's for a little bit. That was fun. So that was good. And the show itself, always a little bit of a question mark when I go over there, but I never know how to set it up to adequately provide, just the right amount of sound. So I did one really high main, and then I did one on the floor, and I kept it real turned down. Didn't do any foot percussion or anything like that. Just used my in-ears, so I didn't have like an extra monitor kind of facing at me, which would have just made it, even a little bit louder. So this was a good setup. I don't think I performed very well. This was one that Lo was there at the beginning, but she started having some kind of anxiety issues, which, kind of goes along with the territory of performing music every weekend. I definitely have my fair share, I would say, of anxiety, but I think mine just comes out differently than hers does. She kind of shuts down a little bit. I get kind of short with people and, maybe a little one-track mind, I guess, is kind of how I get. I get very, very focused. I just really focus on the task at hand. And that kind of, I think sometimes when Lo and I perform together, I think that comes out a little bit, and then she's doesn't really like the way I am when I'm like that, and then it causes her to have a little extra anxiety. And it's just, performing, being in front of people is it's a little bit nerve-wracking for everybody, I think. I think I kind of, doing all the sports and stuff I did in high school, and as I think I've mentioned in the past, I was a wrestler, so getting beat up in a singlet in front of a gymnasium full of people kind of, makes you a little bit less, or a little bit more capable, I feel like, to deal with that. Maybe it's just a guess. I don't know other people's experiences. I only know mine, but I definitely feel that energy before I play a lot, where it's like everything's a question mark. When you're gonna get there, how fast you're gonna set up. Is it gonna sound good? Are there gonna be people there? I think that was one of the main reasons for my the state of mind I was in that night. Was I was just kind of worried about people showing up. The weather was inclement, we'll say, and I hadn't played in Pontiac at PK's for, maybe 6 months. So, and I was, a little worried that nobody shows up, maybe they won't have me back, because it's always, some places have built-in draws, and they don't really care if you bring anyone, but this is a little bit different. I think since it's kind of a small wine bar, you kind of are hoping to bring some people in, and I think I did okay. There was definitely, my family was there, had a good group from there, and then probably a couple tables of other people. It's a small place, so it doesn't really take much to make it seem busy. Not the busiest I've ever played there, but it was somewhere in the middle, and for the weather being bad, that was good. And I don't know, I was just worried about not getting back in there. That place was like one of the main places I started playing at in Pontiac when they opened. I'd play there like once a month, and then pretty much after Blair kind of split off and booked some of his own shows there, I haven't been, able to get back over there as much. I'm not there enough to rebook, and then when I am there, like this last time at the end of the show, I rebooked a couple shows. He was booked all the way through June, so I got a June date and a July date. But then by the time I'm back for those shows, he'll be booked through the end of the year for sure. And I mean, unless I go in there sometime between now and then, because his calendar that he currently had was only through, I think, July, which is why I could only book there. I probably will only be there in June and July. But, there's always other places to play. I need to get back in at Pub 13, maybe a little bit more. It's different atmosphere, but, there's a built-in draw there, I think, which is good. And I think I would want to do that like once every 6 months or so. I think that's about how much they'd want to have me over there. But anyway, so the show ended, it was good. Lo had some anxiety issues, kind of had to sit out after the first, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. It was only a 2-hour show, so I don't know. I couldn't quite catch my groove, but I don't know if I just had my in-ear set funny or something. I just wasn't comfortable. I don't really know why. But, I mean, it sounded fine. I'm just being overly critical because that's kind of my job, I guess, to be that way. I wish I wasn't sometimes, but some good things come from it, but also some bad things come from it. So then the next weekend, I played at Cadillac Jack's on Friday, and then Clark Bar Saturday. So Cadillac Jack's, we played 3-piece, so it was me, Lo, and Dave, and it was all around a pretty good show. I went there super early to set up, and got everything sounding pretty good, I think. And nothing too eventful happened. Wasn't amazing, wasn't terrible, wasn't somewhere in the middle there. Wasn't super busy, but there were people there, so I'll take it. And played a lot of originals that night, which was fun and good. A couple people came specifically to see us, which is always nice to see. And I think we played fine. And then after that it was Clark Bar. Clark Bar, I played just solo acoustic, but I did the one-man band kind of thing, though, so it was, a little bit more full sounding. And it was pretty good. Nothing. Had a couple tables come there specifically to see me. Got kind of busy at one point. I don't know. Ever since I've been using my in-ears, it's just tough for me to judge how shows are going. A little tougher, I feel like, because I'm so in my own world when I'm playing. Which, again, I think is good for me, because I'm, I get kind of hyper-focused. So it probably makes me perform a lot better, just isolated listening to myself in headphones. You're hanging on every note, but I don't know how in the moment I actually am sometimes with that, which is always the fight, whether you're like in it or you're kind of just overly, outside yourself watching it and critiquing. But, so, yeah, I think those shows were all okay. I don't think any of them really stood out as being amazing. The next weekend we had, a couple good ones, which would have been Friday night at the Trading Post Saloon in Springfield. That one was definitely a good one. I got to the place I wanted to get, and, I remembered why I'm doing it, kind of. And sometimes it's really weird, you just remember one thing, I think I was over-breathing for a while, and that happens too with my doing the foot drums. I get a little out of breath, and then I start over-breathing, and as a singer, singing is about vocal control. If you're breathing too much, you don't have as much control, if you're winded. So, I kind of had a practice right before that show where I was really focused on that, and then I felt like the show just became a lot easier, which is, strange that I would forget that. And maybe it's, the new in-ears. I'm not used to them quite yet, so I had to relearn how to sing with them. But remembering to, breath control, which I always do to an extent, but when I'm really, really focused on that, I feel like the show always goes a lot better. And then, so for Saturday, this last weekend, we had 2 shows. I played at the farmer's market in the morning, and I played at Poor Brothers in Peoria that night. So it was just me and Lo for the farmer's market, and it was actually probably the most fun market I've done in a while. No amplification, just purely acoustic. We did a lot of, after the show on Friday night, we sang for the whole car ride home. We were just both kind of listening to some old music we liked in high school that was really bad, and getting a kick out of it, and we were singing along and stuff. And so I felt like that kind of carried me through the morning a little bit, which is a little strange, but I don't know, it just felt a lot easier to sing in the morning. And we went to bed late, which was a mistake, of course, but when you got to sing in the morning, it's always a little bit of a wild card. You never really know how your voice is going to work. I always try to get up a little early and warm up, but like I said, the night before, singing in the car on the ride home, I think made it much, much easier in the morning and kind of eased into it. And when you're not, plugged in to, be the main sound of the event, you're more kind of background music. So you can kind of, we definitely messed around a little bit with some stuff and tried some different things, and it was just fun. I had fun with it. And Lo was there. I think she had fun. I think it was good. It was so Friday at Cadillac Jack's was a really good show, and then Saturday morning was a really good show. The Poor Brothers at night was, I don't know. I got to a point where I felt really good, but then I got a little bit of negative feedback from somebody in the crowd, and it just I don't know, put me out, I guess, out of the moment for sure. I think we were doing our Tom Pedley, and I was feeling really good about it, and get to the end, I break a string, which was annoying, but I didn't have time to change my strings that day, I remember, because I had the 2 shows and some other stuff, and so yeah, I broke a string, and that kind of got me out of because getting ready for the solo and Mary Jane's Last Dance, and I always like to play that. I don't know why. It just makes me feel like a guitar player, I guess. But, I do it okay. It's not like I blow anybody away with it or anything, but it's a fun little riff to kind of rock to, and I was kind of feeling good. And then, so that put a damper on the pedley, and then Blair actually showed up. He had a show at PK's earlier, and he came in and kind of talked right as I broke the string, and kind of had to restring, and he was already on the way out the door, and I asked if he could stick around for a song maybe and help me with the sound and make sure it sounds okay. And he did. He stuck around for one song, and he did kind of mess with the EQs on some different channels and whatnot, but I don't know. It kind of made me think that maybe it didn't sound as good as I had originally thought. And then and I know this person was kind of older and kind of drunk, but she had said that I couldn't hear my vocals very good and my foot drums were too loud. And that kind of stuck in my head pretty much the rest of the night. I definitely probably fixed the problem, but I don't know, it's just weird how your perception can change so easily, I felt like for the first half, oh, we were sounding good, this feels good, and there were plenty of people that were really, really engaged and really watching, and a couple different people like on the way out were like, hey, thank you guys sound really good. But of course I just can't focus on that. I can only focus on the two negative things well, really three if you count the broken string. I actually broke two strings because I broke my D, and then I put a new one on, and then immediately after broke the G. So I ended up having to switch guitars, but that breaks your flow, I guess, a little bit. So that was definitely annoying. And then, I'm just winging that guitar, how to EQ that in the middle of the set. I'm not really going out and listening necessarily, just hoping, kind of crossing my fingers, because, two different guitars sound differently, So, anyway, it was just, I was in a funk for the rest of the night, pretty much just going through the motions, because I had the strings break, had the loud lady tell me that, it wasn't sounding good, and, she was in a band, and she knows, so that made me not, like I said, kind of fall out of it a little bit. And then Blair, when he came and kind of said that there was a bunch of things wrong with the mix, kind of pulled me out a little bit as well. One of the big things was my foot drum, I think, was too loud, and I thought that was the case, but I kept asking, Dave and Lo if they thought it was too loud, and they kept saying no. So, and I asked the bar several times if we were too loud, and they kept saying no. So, I don't know, maybe it was just one person, but I ended up and retaped up my foot tambourine tap shoe. And it seems like that seemed to help quite a bit. It definitely dampened it and made it less like piercing. And it's a big, like, billowy room, so very, very live room. Everything is kind of bouncing off the walls, and it's just like one giant square or box, I guess. And a lot of hard surfaces for the sound to bounce off of. And it was great that Blair was there. I'm glad he stayed for a song and helped dial us in. I just need to be better about, at the beginning of the show, maybe not trusting Dave or Lo as much and actually listening myself, because I go through phases where, I have a main pointed back at me just so I can hear it, and then, we use it for a monitor, but I'm using the in-ear monitors, so it's, I don't know, it's something I'm still figuring out, but, yeah, I don't know, it just was real hard to pick myself up after that, and it makes you wonder, like, okay, so Friday night, when I was playing at the Trading Post, in Springfield, I felt like the show was going really good. I was like, oh, this is why we do it. And, my perception was that it was sounding really good, but I had that same perception the next night, and apparently it wasn't as good, or I don't know. Again, there was a couple that stuck around for the whole show and, like, watched very intently the whole time, and, they applauded, like, everything we did, and, added us on the streaming sites that they use, and were excited about it. But, again, it's just hard for me to focus on that for some reason, but I don't know. In my mind, Friday was really good, and in my mind, the first half of the set on Saturday was good, but then had that kind of reality check that happens. So, I don't know, mixed feelings, but the Friday night and Saturday morning shows were a lot of fun and good, I think. I think they sounded good. At least that's what I'm going with in my head, so I can continue to convince myself that I'm making the right choices. But anyway, so this coming week we have Davenport, Iowa, our double night show coming up. And that's what I'll be talking about next week. As always, if you made it this far, I appreciate you taking the time to listen, and have a good rest of your week.